No, God bless you guys. All the other people had other siblings, and I had to act like they didn't exist, and because math is hard for me. Okay, so you are the oldest sibling. Therefore, you would have the birthright. So, the first thing you get in a birthright is called double inheritance. Now, let me give you an example. Say your lovely parents, they're lovely, I'm not trying to wish this upon you, okay? But your lovely parents, they pass away, and they leave you an estate worth $6 million. Whew, Mom and Dad are loaded, let's go, all right? So, there's two siblings. What would we think is the fair way to split up $6 million? What do you guys think? 50-50, right? You get $3 million, you get $3 million. Wrong! That's not how this works, okay? So the double inheritance means you get double whatever he gets. So that $6 million, that with $3 million and $3 million, you get $4 million, you get $2 million. So notice how his increased at the cost of you. Now, you're probably still not all that mad. You just got $2 million, right? You're like, okay, that's totally fine. But you get double whatever he gets, no matter what, just for being born. He literally did nothing in all of this. It's very upsetting, I know, okay? First thing, double inheritance. Second thing, you get power. Here's what it means why you get power. You get power over all family disputes. You inherit all of your parents' responsibilities and titles and possessions. And also, you can move the entire family whenever you want, because you have ultimate authority over all of the family. So let's say he wants to move to Nebraska, and you're like, I don't like corn. Suck it up, Buttercup. We're moving to Nebraska, all right? Like, that's how it worked. He would say, jump, and you would say, how high? That is the power he has. You're way interested in this one, right? You're like, dude, sign me up for this one, okay? So you get double inheritance, and you get power. The third thing you get a blessing. So actually, you would get a blessing from the Father that would actually kind of be from God himself. They would pray a blessing over you, a blessing of prosperity, a blessing of abundance, and you would literally have God's blessing over your life, not over his life. So you get double inheritance, you get power, and you get blessing, all for being the firstborn son, and you get absolutely nothing. I'm sorry, them's the rules, don't worry about it. So, when Esau walks in and says, hey, I want a bowl of soup, and Jacob says, sell me your birthright. I'm sorry, what did you just say? You want me to sell me my birthright? You want me to sell you the double inheritance, the power, and the blessing for a bowl of soup? You are insane. There's no possible way Esau would ever consider this a fair trade, right? You would never sell. If you truly had the birthright, there's no way you would sell all that for a bowl of soup, right? Like, let's be real, you probably wouldn't sell just because of the power of like, I can lord power over my brother at all times. Like, that is the number one thing, let's be real. And so there's no way you would ever take this deal, right? The very next passage, Genesis 25:32. Look, I'm about to die, said Esau. What good is a birthright to me? And we start to see the wheels turning of Esau, seriously considering selling the birthright, selling the double inheritance, selling the power, selling the blessing for a bowl of soup. You guys can have a seat. Thank you guys so much. We're going to come back to this sentence in just a second, but because I don't want to skip over, because this sentence right here, what Esau says, and those couple of words, those two sentences right there, that is the crux of this message. That is the idea that I want all of you to pull away from. But before we come back to it, I want to finish off the story. Here's what it says. Genesis chapter 25, verse 33. But Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. So Esau sells the double inheritance. He sells the power. He sells the blessing. For what? For a bowl of soup. I want to go back to that sentence in verse 32 where it says, look, I'm about to die, Esau said. What good is a birthright to me? This sentence right here
is what you and I do every single day. This sentence right here is a perfect example of the sin in our life. Esau makes an incredibly short-sighted decision. A decision that he would later go on to regret, and he admits that he regrets, that he wishes he could take back. He makes a choice that makes no sense to us whatsoever. We would never make this trade in a million years. But we also do it every single day. Look, I'm about to die. What good is a birthright to me is the perfect encapsulation of what sin does in our life. It's what we do every single day. You see, sin lies to us in two very specific ways. And we see it right here from this passage. The first way sin lies to us, sin exaggerates the present. Esau came in from a long day of hunting, right? He was out, maybe he got up really early that morning, maybe he got back really late. He is absolutely starving in this moment. And if you notice, he doesn't start off with saying he's going to die. He starts off with saying, what? I'm hungry. He actually says, I'm famished, which is a little dramatic, but whatever, it's fine. He says, I'm famished. I'm really hungry. But then he kind of ups the game. He makes it a little more exaggerated. He makes it a little more dramatic by saying he's going to die. Is he going to die? No. Let's be real. All of us do this though, right? Like, if it's like 11:45, 12 o'clock, like, basically right now, all right, and I haven't had lunch yet, I start to get a little hangry, a little grumpy, all right? And I've had it in situations before with my wife or with people I'm hanging out with, and I just say, if I don't eat within the next 5 minutes, I will die. Will I actually die? No, but it kind of feels like that, right? Because it felt like that in the moment, even though it's simply not true. That's exactly what sin does in the moment. It exaggerates the present, and it makes the present a bigger deal than it actually should be. And when it exaggerates it, then sin looks more enticing. It looks like it's worth it, and we begin to justify it in our hearts and our mind. Because we think, man, the thing right in front of me, the thing that's happening right now is the biggest deal in the world, when maybe it actually isn't. And maybe we need to have a different perspective because we're so close to the sin. We only see the problem in front of us, and it feels like it just completely overwhelms us. And it's the only thing we desire. We think it's right, and we think it's the only way. The book of Proverbs actually warns us of this very idea in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, where it says, there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. Amen. You see, Esau thought what he was doing was right, but in the end, it cost him. How many times has that happened to you and me? We thought it was right in the moment because that moment felt so important. That moment felt so immediate, and we focus only on the temporary, only on the things that feel good in the moment, not realizing the damage that's going to be done when we make that choice. And James is talking about sin and temptation when he writes this in James chapter 1. He says, then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. We've all seen this happen. We had a desire in the moment. We thought it would feel good in the moment. It was just a temporary thing, but it led to sin, which led to death. And maybe it was the death of a relationship. Maybe it was the death of an opportunity. Maybe it was the death of trust between you and someone else. Or maybe it was just separation between you and God. You see, sin lies to us in two very specific ways. It exaggerates the present, and sin also devalues the future. What does Esau say in this second part of it? He says, what good is a birthright to me? He's actually devaluing the value of the birthright. And in fairness to Esau, when the father is still alive, the birthright has very little value. Because the father is still alive, I don't get the double inheritance because he still has the money. When the father is still alive, I don't have the power because my father still has the power. When my father is still alive, I don't get the blessing because he gives me the blessing right before he's going to die. The blessing is actually on my father. And then when he dies, that blessing transfers over to me. So in the moment, The birthright actually has very little value. But in the future, it's priceless, right? In the future, it has a ton of value. But he's so caught up in the exaggeration of the present that he can't see the long-term repercussions of his actions. And this happens with the sin in our life. What we thought we were doing wasn't a big deal. We thought we had it under control. We thought that this relationship wouldn't affect anything, but it ended up destroying everything. And we read this story and we think, how can Esau be so stupid, right? How can he be so short-sighted? How can he trade his birthright for a bowl of soup? But you and I do the same thing every single day. We trade our marriage because of a feeling. We sacrifice our reputation for a one-time decision. Some of us in this room are throwing away our marriage because of something we are feeling right here and right now. And let me be clear about that. Your feelings might be valid. Just like when Esau stepped into the room, he had a valid feeling of feeling hungry. He had a valid feeling of being tired. But the problem arose when he let those feelings run rampant in his life. And that feeling of hunger actually tricked him into feeling like he was dying. And so he allowed a temporary feeling to destroy his future. For what? For a bowl of soup. And my question for all of us today, and it's a strange question, I'm not going to lie to you, but I think it actually has a lot of relevance for each and every one of us. What is your bowl of soup? What is the thing that you are throwing everything away for? For some of you, it's an affair that you're having. You are throwing away your marriage because of it. For some of you, you are doing questionable things at work. You are stealing from the company. You are not being trustworthy where you work. And you are throwing your career away because of it. For some of you, it's an addiction. You're addicted to alcohol, to drugs, to gambling, to pornography. And you are throwing away the trustworthiness and the trust of someone else that loves and cares for you. For others of us, we are trading away our relationship with God, trading away the relationship with the creator of the universe, with the God that loves us, with the God that has sacrificed everything for us. For what? For a temporary feeling. You are trading your birthright for a bowl of soup. You are giving up being a child of God to being a slave to a sin. You are trading your future for something temporary. A couple chapters later in Genesis, it tells us that Jacob actually tricks their father Isaac into giving him the blessing. And Esau is furious. Even though Esau created this situation, even though Esau's sin, Esau's short-sightedness created this whole scenario, and he caused all of this. In Genesis chapter 27, verse 41 says this: Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing of his father that had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Jacob kind of gets tipped off that Esau says this, and so he flees. He runs away. He is scared for his life. And the rest of Jacob's, almost the majority of the rest of Jacob's life, it is running away from Esau. And Esau and Jacob's relationship is broken. Jacob's deception and Esau's feelings broke their relationship. Sin breaks relationships as well. Some of you have experienced this. Some of you are experiencing this right now. For some of you, you are in the middle of that brokenness, and you're asking yourself, is there any hope for me? I know my sin has messed things up, or I know my spouse's sin has messed things up. I know that the sins of my parents have broken our relationship. What can I do right here and right now? Well, if sin exaggerates the present, and if sin devalues the future, what it's doing right there, it's distorting our perspective. And it's time for us to take that perspective back. It's time for us to change our perspective. Paul writes about this in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, where he says, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. So often you and I focus on just the temporary, the things that are right in front of our face, only the feelings in that moment, and God is calling us to so much more than that. And I know that's easier said than done, because we can only see the temporary things. We can only see the things that are right in front of us. But those things that we can physically see, those are the things that will pass away. Those are the things that are not eternal. Those are the things that are not of God. The unseen things, those are the things that are eternal. Those are the things that bring life. Those are the things that we should be focusing on. Paul writes a letter to the church in Colossae, where he says this in Colossians chapter 3. He says, set your minds on the things above, not on earthly things. You see, our perspective needs to change. And that mindset shift, that can make all the change in the world, not focusing on the things that are only in front of us, not focusing on the feelings in the moment, but focusing on the God of the universe. Will you change your mindset today, though? Will you still allow sin to exaggerate the present and to devalue the future? Or is it time for a change? Some of you are in the middle of brokenness right now. Maybe you are feeling the effects of someone else's sin, or you are dealing with the fallout of your own choices. If that's you, I want to actually challenge you to come back next week. Because next week, we're going to read the end of the story of Jacob and Esau. And I'm going to be unpacking what that kind of looks like. Because right now, in this moment, in Genesis chapter 27, where Esau says, I'm going to kill my brother, it feels like their relationship is forever broken. And a lot of you are probably sitting in that same spot right now. Maybe you haven't had a death threat or anything crazy like that, but you're saying to yourself, this relationship between me and my spouse, it feels forever broken. This relationship between a friend, it feels broken. This relationship between a parent, it feels forever broken. And I want to tell you, it isn't. Because we can submit to a God that makes all things new. And we can serve a God that makes the impossible possible. And next week, we're going to unpack the story and the reuniting of Jacob and Esau. But I want to tell you, and I want to warn you, the forgiveness doesn't happen right away. The restoration doesn't happen right away. Years go by between Jacob and Esau actually talking again. It doesn't happen next week, it doesn't happen next month, it doesn't even happen a year later. Almost 20 years go by between when Esau says, I'm going to kill my brother, and then they're brought back together. And that might be the same for you. You might be sitting in that moment right now, where it's been years, it's been decades since a relationship has been restored, since a brokenness has been restored. But I believe God can do all things. And He wants to restore those relationships. He wants to put back together what sin broke in the first place. And I believe that God can provide redemption to any story and to any relationship. But that redemption starts with us recognizing that our sin broke it in the first place. That our sin has broken our relationships. And that God can put those things back together. But it takes submission to Him. It takes us turning back to God. Will you do that today? Will you make that choice today? Will you turn to Him today? Because I believe your story is not over. It is not done. It has not been written and finalized yet. God can do the impossible. But I don't want you to sell your future because of a temporary feeling. God has something so much greater for you planned than that. So I don't know what decision you need to make today. In just a second, we're going to have pastors and leaders up here, and they want to pray for you. They want to encourage you. And they want to do everything they can to get you right with God.
And maybe for some of you, you need to step out of that sin that has deceived you, that sin that has warped your perspective. And maybe that's time for you to say, look, I'm tired of this bowl of soup that I think is going to satisfy, but I'm giving up everything else. And I want to lay that down. For some of you, you just need prayer. The choices of other people has broken this relationship, and I don't know how to start. I don't know how to provide forgiveness. If that's you, I'd love for you to pray, but also come back next week. Some of you need to step out of that sin and walk towards God for the first time. And maybe that's a choice of baptism. Saying, God, I'm surrendering everything to you today because I'm tired of the bowl of soup that I have. I'm tired of being a slave to sin. I want to be a child of God.
Amen.
Once again. Whatever your choice is, whatever your decision is, I pray that you would come forward. Let's stand and let's sing.
Amen.